Hey Peyton, nice to see you again on this beautiful day. And this time with a short poem by William Martin. Do not ask your children to strive. Here's how it goes. Do not ask your children to strive for extraordinary lives. Such striving may seem admirable, but it is the way of foolishness. Help them instead to find the wonder and the marvel of an ordinary life. Show them the joy of tasting tomatoes, apples, and pears. Show them how to cry when pets and people die. Show them the infinite pleasure in the touch of a hand, and make the ordinary come alive for them. The extraordinary will take care of itself. How do you like this one? And what kind of ideas come to mind when you listen to these lines?
Great to be back with you, man. I love the poem. And like everything, there's a golden mean to be found here. And of course, we all have our potential, we all have our abilities, and it is good for us to apply ourselves with vigor to the world. It is good for us to walk with purpose and to apply ourselves, to put forth effort, to apply our energy, and to grow into what we're capable of becoming. None of that is intrinsically bad. But what is so important to recognize is that our worth, our value as beings does not come from being great, does not come from creating something abnormal out there, does not come from what we can build with our hands or think with our minds or how special we can be. The value that we all possess is intrinsic. It is divine, and nothing that we create on our own, no efforts and no application of our own strength can give us the value, the intrinsic divinity that each of us is born with, that each of us has always already within us, the eternal light of which each of us is ultimately a drop. And so while we move in the world, and even while we allow that light to shine and flow through us, and maybe it does special or extraordinary things, or maybe it doesn't, nothing that happens on the outside is ultimately the proper account for our value or our worth or our worthiness. And I think that there can be imbalance when we teach our kids to find approval or worthiness in what they achieve. And very understandable. And people do this in completely well-meaning ways. It's almost always conditioned by their society and their own parents with good intentions, trying to help our children strive toward applying themselves and reaching their potential with noble values. But the balance here is so important. And the value of tasting a pear or a tomato, the value of experiencing our life, the value of feeling our feelings, the value of being who we are, how we are in our natural state. All of these things can be overlooked by trying to find worth and value over there by something that we haven't yet built or something that we don't yet have. But there's an old saying, do not lay up for yourselves treasure on earth where moth and rust destroy. Lay up treasures for yourself in heaven. And this, I think, is pointing at the same thing. Our treasure is not in the house we can get, in the career that we have, the business that we build, the successes that we have, how special we are, how magnificent or awesome this temporary, finite, mortal human body can do on the outside. The real source of our worth, the real source of our value, the thing that is ultimately divine and lovable and ultimate and eternal in all of us is already here. It is already this divine spark within us all. And experiencing the world, being here, being ourselves, this is already enough. And that starting point of already being complete, already being whole as we are, this is actually very helpful for all the other stuff. It makes us much less fragile, much more bendy, much more creative, all of that. But that stuff is secondary. That's not the ultimate goal. This isn't a technique for all of that. This is the thing. This is where our intrinsic value already is. It's already fully here, and we don't have to earn it, and we cannot earn it. And trying to pretend that we can or thinking that we must earn it distracts us from the true ultimate value, the essence, the worthiness that we all already always possess. How do you think about this philosophy or the golden mean between these two things?
Well, it's a very healthy approach to look at life and look at yourself. If you assume that you're already enough, then there's no lack of anything. And like you said, it's we should gather our stuff in the kingdom of heaven. What is the kingdom of heaven for me? It's this life in this moment, being aware of everything I can experience. Is like heaven if I taste some delicious meal with a high level of awareness, with mindfulness. And there's also clinical studies on mindfulness-based stress reduction techniques where you just eat your food with a little bit more awareness and your whole life will change in 6 weeks. Like if you practice it only 10 minutes a day, just raising the level of awareness and feeling what comes into your system in terms of sensory experiences, what you see, what you smell, what you feel, just with a heightened level of awareness and a heightened level of mindfulness, then your whole system will relax. You will feel less stress, and life is a different life for you because you experience it differently. Because your whole life basically is an emotional experience. So why wouldn't you want to try to have less stress, at least less self-induced distress? There's something else. Eustress, from the
Mm,
Greek oistress, which means this is the happy kind of stress which you induce yourself when you take a run on the ridge of a mountain or when you paddle in a wavy waters. Kind of stress which is a match to enjoyment and physical activities and challenging yourself in a new kind of way when you climb or boulder on a new rock wherever in nature. This is a kind of stress that you want to self-induce. But the stress where you feel like a victim, where you feel powerless, where the news induce fears and anxieties in your system, in your nervous system, then using a little bit more mindfulness as a antidote to being overwhelmed gives you back the control of your life in a tiny bit. First, you won't recognize it, but it will have an effect in changing the life you live because you will experience it differently. Because life ultimately is an emotional experience. And that's why I also love the poem, because if you learn that very early, then the whole trajectory of your life has a different potential of being experienced in this kind of wonderful sense, in this kind of ordinary, extraordinary sense that you will find pleasure and enjoyment in the most ordinary places. If you can look at the leaf or at the bug or a beetle or like at the fly, then you look at it with curiosity and wonder, you will have so much more power in shaping your experiences if you can do that. There was this one Tai Chi trainer in the monastery I've been 10 years ago who said, if you learn to love to breathe, life will be very easy to manage for you. What do you think about that?
love that. I've never heard that before, but I really do love that saying from that teacher. That's beautiful. And what comes to mind for me is that we might be tempted to look at how we view others and how we view ourselves as two separate things. We can apply this way of view toward our children, this way of view toward the people we work with, this way of view toward ourselves, this way of view toward people that we don't know that we might see as we pass by. But the truth is, there's some spiritual physics to our mindsets that connect these things. We cannot be hyper judgmental toward those people over there and yet fully unconditionally loving toward our own children or toward our own self. We cannot be fully loving unconditionally of ourselves while we are unforgiving and holding grudges and holding on to the hot coal of anger and ill will toward other people, even an enemy, so to speak. And so, as we view all of this, as we strive to be the best person that we can toward, for example, our children or toward our loved ones, we should be very intentional about our ways of being, our mindsets, and the state of our heart toward everybody that crosses our mind, everybody in our life. And when we experience great suffering for ourselves, when we experience this self judgment, self unforgiveness, the place to look is, how am I shining a light of judgment on other people versus how am I shining a light of acceptance and forgiveness toward other people? The physics of these are very, very connected. Judge not, and you will not be judged. Judge,
Hmm.
and you will be judged.
Hmm.
Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Forgive not, and you will not be forgiven. These are all over the place and not beating around the bush. This is stuff that we can see over and over and over. When our heart is fully forgiving, when our heart is fully unconditionally loving, we will feel forgiveness. We will feel unconditional love. We will be open to these things. And even when we judge ourselves, maybe we think that it's actually important that we have self judgment toward ourselves. Maybe it's important that we think that we hold a grudge toward ourselves or we hate some part of ourselves. This is tempting and it's conditioned, and a lot of society will actually tell you that this is important, this is good, feel this way toward yourself, and it's morally right, or it's the duty to do, feeling these feelings of self-shame. But the truth is, if we indulge these negative loops toward ourselves, this negative judgment or hatred towards parts of ourselves, it will inadvertently, unconsciously manifest toward all the relationships in our life. And it's, on one hand, important to have the balance of discernment: what serves me, what does not serve me, what it will bear good fruit, what does not bear good fruit. Where am I following wisdom versus where am I following my own temptations? All of these things are important. We will stray off course, and we must have the wisdom to recognize that and to come back on course. But it does not have to come with hate when we bring ourselves back on course. Same with when we look toward others. We may need to work around what's going on. And a great metaphor for this that I mentioned before the call is like a bear. Like, imagine if you're getting attacked by a grizzly bear. You might shoot this grizzly bear to defend yourself. You might hold up a shield to prevent this grizzly bear from killing you if he's going to attack you. You might run away from this grizzly bear. You might go behind a fence so this grizzly bear can't get to you. But you're probably not going to take it too personal if a grizzly bear attacks you. It's like, oh, it's just a grizzly bear. He's doing grizzly bear things. Grizzly bears attack things. The grizzly bears are hungry. They want to eat. They get defensive. They try to guard their children. This is natural. This is cause and effect of this creature's nature. And we can have this recognition toward more and more people in our lives and even toward ourselves. So, yes, of course, people are going to mess up. People are going to harm us. People will go back on their word. People will attack us. People will have ill will. People will really act out their own suffering and contraction and psychology all over the place, all the time, in ways that are harmful, genuinely. But so would a grizzly bear. And we can have this feeling of like, okay, I need to work around reality. This thing is in front of me. Or I need to work around my own reality. I messed up terribly yesterday because I was totally blind. And that's cause and effect of just how it is. I can recognize that and I can work around it. I don't have to deny any of that, but I also don't have to have hatred, judgment, unforgiveness toward any of it. Because if I allow this judgment, anger, this isn't good enough, this is insufficient, this is wrong, this I disagree with this aspect of reality in our heart, in our mindset, in a way that is out of balance, it will cause us to contract in a way that will lead to judgment of others, will lead to judgment of ourselves, will lead to judgment of even the people that we love the most, that we don't want to have the spirit toward. And so the admonition or the hope or the opportunity that none of us are going to be perfect at, probably, is to let go of all of that, to start off with coming back to this point of radical acceptance, radical enoughness, radical everything and everyone is exactly how they are. And I am at peace with reality in this moment, including all of the things that I would not have wanted to be here if somebody had asked me and given me the choice. All of what has already arrived, all of what is in the past, I can surrender to all of that and then move forward from there and then run away from the grizzly bear if I need to or whatever. And this ties into accepting our kids, or accepting the people that we want to nurture, or accepting ourselves as that kid that was once trying to strive, and accepting ourselves as worthy just as we are, even if we fail at something, even if we haven't achieved anything special or we don't feel special right now. We don't have to be accomplishing external objective things in the world that are going to be temporary and that are going to fade away, that moth and rust will destroy. We don't have to be trying to be like Ozymandias, look at me in despair while his statue is already in ruins. We can actually recognize that our inner light, the flow of our innermost being, our awareness is eternal. And this is where our intrinsic value lies, never in something that we create on the outside. We always already have the thing that is divine. We always already have the thing that is worthy of unconditional love and that is the source of unconditional love. And it's something that's very helpful to remind ourselves of, to orient ourselves toward, to recognize once again, and to recognize that even though it's not going to be something that we display like a peacock's tail, even though it's not going to be something that puts together this crazy argument and weaves together this identity narrative, it is the ultimate. And we can give ourselves back to that over and over and over. And we can feel that and see that in other people as well as their intrinsic divinity. How do you think about this recognition, this wise balance, and the discernment of when something is out of line or when we do need to act in response to something? How can we hold the right balance through it all?
Question. The right balance is always the important thing. So we need to be balanced in approaching life and striving, as well as our relationships with ourselves and others. So extremes most often lead to extreme outcomes as well, like either extreme dependence or extreme separation, depending on how you approach it. If you just become a hermit and go up a mountain and don't talk to anybody else because you're so peaceful with yourself, then probably also grow very fragile. You cannot go into the real world again and then not be disturbed by all the loud noises in the cars and so on. That's what I experienced when I was thrown back into the real world after the 10-day retreat a few months ago. It was so loud, everything, the noises were so intense, and the smells and everything was so intense again. It was like a shock for the whole system again, whereas I was previously just watching ants crawl by and build their straits and carry stuff as a super organism. I was watching lizards, monitor lizards, like saying hi to me and having their blue tongue out and swimming in the pond. I was exploring cashew nut trees and I got stung by a black wasp swarms.
Nice.
That was painful. Well, that was like a welcome welcome experience after all this quietude. And so there's always a balance to strike, but how can we reach that? I guess if we can carve out in our daily lives, carve out like some kind of sanctuary space or sanctuary time when we go there, that we intentionally uh, quiet ourselves and quiet our minds, intentionally raise our level of mindfulness. When we do that, then probably we strike a better balance than if we don't do it. So oftentimes it is leaving out the stuff which disturbs us, which leads to more peace and quieter mind and less stress. So if you would leave out reading the news or reading all the channels of new kind of information about the world that come into your brain and obviously shape the way you think and what you think about, if you just would leave out that, if you are in a stressed kind of part in your life, then probably this will be good enough. Even better if you could carve out some space and time, which is your sanctuary, where you can just kind of relax and recalibrate and find the extraordinary in the ordinary again, like the poet William Martin said. And that's just also important to teach to the children, as I said previously, because that it will have a much bigger influence on the rest of their lives. Imagine a ball you throw and the wind that comes at point A in time or point B in time, which is further out. And every time the wind has the same strength. And the force which diverts the trajectory of the ball when the wind hits at point A, the ball will hit the ground at a much, much different point in space as if the ball would be diverted by the wind at point B further out. So the impact teachings have are much higher when you impact early in life, when the impacts are early in life. So some people are not as lucky as we have been and grew up in a loving house with great parents who had good values. And some people are not lucky and they experience traumatic issues in their relationships. The mothers or the fathers mistreated them. So they don't have this kind of trust. And that's why it's even more important for us not only to have like compassion with ourselves, but also compassion with people who do not display this kind of values that we would love to strive for, and the acceptance of ourselves and of others, which we would want to project into our own lives. So it is even more important to be patient and yeah, also compassionate with these kinds of people who don't make our life easier, but who are stressors which can help us grow, give us challenges for our lives so that we don't remain fragile in that regard, so that we can learn to handle stress, increase our negative capability of taking in the shit and dealing with it and putting it on a hill of soil so that next year we can plant some strawberries and then we can turn shit into strawberries. But it takes time and patience and a systematic approach in growing something out of it.
Some good alchemy right there. Yeah. And in coming to the right balance mindset toward all of this, you point out some great things. I, for one, am so grateful that my parents did not try to shield me from experiencing hardship because it would have terribly stunted my growth. They had the courage, honestly, to allow me to experience my own pain and difficulty along my journey in a way that was really needed for me, and even with a heart of love. And I think that it's so important as well to encourage kids to apply themselves, to feel out their potential, to utilize their strengths, and really with the mindset not of you are not good enough already, so you need to go figure out a way to be worthy over there. You lack something that you need to achieve in order to be good enough. This is not the mindset, but more of a mindset of you are already worthy and you have an opportunity to be a good steward of what you have been given with the gifts that you've been given, the mind you've been given, the energy you've been given, this mindset of stewardship that applies, of course, not only in our relationship toward people we love or people that we are entrusted with, but of course to ourselves too. And so this is my intention this week. So if I lose anything that I have, if I do not achieve anything on the outside world, if I do not do anything that is objectively external and earn anything, then I am still fully worthy. I am still have this intrinsic spark, just like every other human, just like every other conscious being. This divine light is the source of ultimate worth and unconditional love. But at the same time, I have this opportunity as human body mind system moving in the world, in the environment that I am in, with the things that are going on and with the points of leverage that I have to be a good steward of the reality that I am, even as I'm accepting myself in all of my pros and cons, all of the ways that I am ordinary and not extraordinary. I don't need to do anything to be worthy, but I'm here and I'm called to be a faithful steward with trust that I don't control the whole universe, but I will give my energy and move in the way that I am called to be faithful, to be a steward, to not back down from what is hard, to not shy away from difficulty and exertion and growth, but yet to have this mindset of holding it with an open palm, open myself to loss or failure or not achieving. At the same time, fully apply my energy, fully apply my gifts to be a good steward, to to acknowledge and love the trust that the universe has given me in whatever situation that I'm in, to treat even the small things as an opportunity to flow forth and to be my highest or most authentic or most transparent self, to allow the light to flow, and to recognize that everybody has this intrinsic, equal, one divine spark within them, that I am not better than anybody, I'm not worse than anybody. We're all, the thing that is ultimately valuable in us all is the same, is one. And so moving and interacting with people, interacting with myself with that point of view can lead to just such a healthier and more balanced way of being. So this is my intention for this week. How about you, my friend? What is your intention?
Awesome intention. And you mentioning trust and instilling the trust in your children is probably the greatest gift you can give them in terms of make the ordinary come alive for them, and then the extraordinary will take care of itself. It is trusting that good things can come out of bad things, and that down the line we will experience hardships and challenges, but it helps us grow into a new version of ourselves and that can deal with even harder challenges down the line. And there will be harder challenges down the line. And in the end, we're gonna lose something. We're gonna lose a loved one. We're gonna lose a pet. We're gonna lose our fortune. Whatever. Can deal with it. We can trust that something good can come out of this. And I think this is very valuable. And my intention is also to increase the balance and the mindfulness through the space I can create through leaving out distractions like watching the news or reading stuff which is political, scrolling Instagram. If I just leave out that and take the time to just do nothing, I guess I'll be better off. So this is my intention, to do more of
Mm.
that in the next week.
I'm inspired to do that as well.
Awesome, man. Thank you very much for this wonderful conversation. Appreciate you, man.
Likewise, my friend. Always a pleasure. I will see you on the next one.
See you soon. Bye bye.
Bye bye.